Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise and bring you the insights that matter. Today, we're plunging into Percival Everett's, phenomenal 2024 novel, James. It's subtitled A Radical Retelling of Huckleberry Finn. Our mission here is to really explore how James doesn't just retell a classic American novel, it fundamentally reimagines it. It gives this powerful voice to a character, Jim, who was previously, portrayed very differently. Some are calling it a powerful act of literary reclamation, and we want to unpack exactly why.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here, it isn't simply putting a new coat of paint on an old story. Everett's approach, it's actually quite a profound critique, an elevation, really, of the original literary canon, those works we consider foundational. He's showing us how crucial it is to revisit and re-examine these texts. Honestly, it offers a reading experience that's truly transformative. It shifts your whole perception. Just imagine you read Twain's original Jim, often seen as, simple, sometimes almost comical. Then you read Everett's Jim, navigating the same river, but with this hidden, razor-sharp intellect, constantly analyzing, strategizing. It's like suddenly seeing the world through a chess grandmaster's eyes after you only understood checkers.
That really gets to the heart of its power, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So how does Everett manage that? How does he transform Jim, the enslaved man for what many saw as a passive sidekick in the original, into this incredibly complex, intelligent, deeply aware character? And how does this shift reveal the hidden psychological toll of slavery, highlighting that absolute necessity of, code switching just to survive?
You mean adjusting language and behavior for safety?
Exactly. That constant calculation in a hostile environment.
Well, our sources really praise this novel for being profound, painful, often darkly humorous, too, and just deeply human. It's quite an account of American history, racial identity, agency. It's telling that it's earned a 9.5 out of 10 rating. That's a near unanimous nod for its masterful handling of such weighty themes.
Building right on that, James, is just this bold, brilliant reimagining of Mark Twain's 1884 classic, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. Everett quite literally takes the narrative reins from Huck, gives the voice to Jim, the enslaved black man traveling down the Mississippi seeking freedom. The book starts, pretty similarly to Twain's original. Jim escapes after overhearing he's about to be sold, separated from his family. He hides out on Jackson's Island, and that's where he runs into Huck.
Right, but this is where the path really diverges, dramatically. Instead of seeing everything through Huck's, let's say, limited, often naive eyes, James shows us the world from Jim's perspective, which is far more complex, intelligent, emotionally rich. Jim is absolutely not the caricature that arguably Twain portrayed. He's literate, he's philosophical, cunning, deeply aware. He has to constantly perform ignorance or illiteracy just to survive in this violently racist world. So for instance, Huck might ask him a seemingly simple question about, say, his escape plans. Jim's spoken reply might be simple, even deferential, but his inner monologue, that reveals this sharp, biting critique of Huck's naivety, or maybe a calculated strategy to keep up his disguise.
And that shift in perspective, it really lays bare the deep psychological toll of slavery, doesn't it? You witness Jim's internal world, that contrast you mentioned between the deferential spoken reply and the biting internal critique or complex plan. It just highlights the immense mental gymnastics required just to exist. That constant need to code switch in every single interaction with white people, and the profound burden of that split, that internal versus external self.
Exactly. And as Jim and Huck encounter those familiar characters from the original, the con men, the Duke and the King, those abusive families like the Grangerfords, the dangerous mob in Arkansas, Jim navigates every situation not with blind trust, but with this astute, often quite biting awareness of the moral corruption just swirling around him. The plot does bring Jim close to freedom, only to see him captured again. Yeah, that mirrors Twain's story. But in Everett's telling, the emotional weight, the political weight of that capture is entirely transformed. It's imbued with a much deeper sense of injustice, of strategic setback.
And Everett doesn't just reframe the existing scenes, he adds entirely new ones, new subplots that really deepen our understanding. For example, we learn much more about Jim's life before the river journey. We see him these tender moments with his family. That makes his quest for freedom even more visceral, more urgent. And the language itself, it's a masterclass. It's this careful balance, right? It feels modern enough to be accessible, but still faithful to the period. It lets the story's authenticity shine through without relying on harmful tropes.
Absolutely. What really stands out from our sources is the incredible voice and characterization. Jim's voice is sharp, it's introspective, emotionally layered. It gives him full agency, intellect, complexity. He's not a sidekick, he's the center. And the novel's political power is just immense. It directly challenges the whitewashed portrayal of slavery and racist tropes you find in Twain's work. Yet, remarkably, it never loses the original story's spirit of rebellion and escape. It captures that too.
It's also incredibly innovative, narratively speaking. Everett uses literary allusions, irony, satire so cleverly, often turning the original story right on its head. For instance, moments that might have seemed purely humorous in Twain are now laced with menace when seen through Jim's eyes, and the infamous N-word from Twain's book, it's largely avoided or subverted in really striking ways, which is a powerful choice in itself. Instead of being used casually, like in the original, when it does appear in James, it lands with its full historical brutality. It marks these pivotal, often terrifying, shifts in the narrative.
Yeah, the way he handles that is significant, and the book's relevance today is just undeniable, especially now. We're in this era where re-examining literary history feels really urgent. James offers this vital contemporary lens on American racism, both past and present. It dives deep into themes like race and identity, that harrowing struggle between freedom and just basic survival, the profound power of language, of literacy, and, the ongoing process of rewriting history in the literary canon. Plus, those deep bonds of fatherhood and family are so central.
Now, it's probably worth noting, if you haven't read Huckleberry Finn, or maybe haven't read it in a long time, you might appreciate James differently. Knowing the original definitely enriches the experience. You pick up on Everett's brilliant irony, the intertextual commentary, how it speaks directly back to Twain. But honestly, James absolutely stands powerfully on its own. As a story of survival, identity, the quest for freedom, it doesn't need the original to be impactful. And be prepared for the emotional intensity. The depiction of racial violence, trauma, systemic dehumanization, it's unflinching. It can be emotionally difficult to read at times, definitely. But it feels like an important and frankly necessary experience. So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Well, James isn't just a novel. It really feels like a literary correction, a profound cultural reclamation. By telling the story from Jim's point of view, Everett reminds us that the very foundations of American literature were often built on voices that were silenced or distorted by racism. This book doesn't just add to the conversation, it shifts its entire center. It forces us to reevaluate what we thought we knew.
Right. And bringing this back to you, listening now, understanding this book offers really crucial insights. Insights into navigating complex themes of race, individual identity, that stark contrast between freedom and survival, and the transformative power of language and literacy. It truly offers a contemporary lens on American racism, past and present. It helps you connect the dots, between historical injustice and the conversations we're having right now about justice and equity.
So for anyone interested in historical fiction, certainly fans of literary retellings, or maybe those of you deeply engaged in the broader discussions around race, power, justice, and literature, James comes highly, highly recommended.
It really does. And it leaves us with a pretty profound question to ponder, doesn't it? If literature has the power to silence or distort voices, as Twain's original arguably did to Jim's, what responsibility does contemporary literature have? Does it have a responsibility to actively amplify those voices, to correct the record, to actively reclaim narratives that have been pushed to the margins? It makes you consider how this ongoing dialogue shapes our understanding of history itself. Makes you see history not as fixed, but as this living, breathing thing that's constantly being reevaluated and retold.